The Middle Ages lasted from about 500 to the middle of 1400s. The collapse of Roman Empire had left Western Europe with no unification government. The Christian Church merged as a unification force in Western Europe and had great influence over economic, social, as well as religious life. Europe's location and resources helped determine the groups of people who settled there and the people who would try to control it. The oceans and seas that surrounded much of Europe were also important resources. People on the coast fished the waters and used them as means of trade and transportation. Large rivers in Europe also provided food and means of travel. The Germanic people who overran the Roman Empire were warriors and farmers. Germanic tribes were governed by unwritten laws and customs and ruled by elected kings. From about 400 to 700, warrior tribes divided Europe and fought for control of various territories. During this time, the Franks merged as the most powerful and successful of the tribes in present-day France. In the late 400s, Clovis, a brilliant and ruthless leader, became king of the Franks. Clovis is best known for his conversion to Christianity, which gained him a powerful ally in the Christian Church. During the 800s, Charlemagne, a Frankish church, built an empire that stretched across modern-day France, Germany, and part of Italy. In the 800s, Pope Leo III, the head of the Christian Church of the time, called for help against rebellious nobles in Rome. Charlemagne answered the Pope's call and defeated the Roman nobles in battle. To show his gratitude, Pope Leo III, on Christmas Day 800, crowned Charlemagne Holy Roman Empire. The crowning of Charlemagne helped revive the ideal of united Christian Church and Empire. After being named emperor, Charlemagne strengthened his rule and attempted to create a united Christian Europe. Working closely with the Roman Catholic Church, he helped spread Christianity to the far stretches of his empire. Charlemagne appointed nobles to rule local areas. He gave them land, expecting them in return to help out with the defense of the empire. Charlemagne regularly sent out officials to check on conditions throughout the empire. He also encouraged learning. He set up a school to ensure the education of government officials. When he died in 814, his empire quickly fell apart as his heirs battled for control. In 843, Charlemagne's grandsons signed the Treaty of Verdun, which divided his empire into 3 separate kingdoms, one for each grandson. Charlemagne had a lasting influence, however. His strong government was a model for the future medieval eras. During the early part of the medieval ages, kings were too weak to keep invaders out of their kingdoms. People began to leave towns and cities, banding together in the countryside for protection and survival. Everyone had a well-defined place in the medieval society. People were born into their social positions, and there were little chance of moving beyond them. The nobility consisted of the kings and queens, greater lords, lesser lords, and knights. The elite class of nobles controlled the land and power. The lower class of peasants, who made up the bulk of the population, worked the land and served the nobles. The clergy was highly respected due to the fact that Christian Church dominated life during the Middle Ages. Women played an active role in feudal society. A lady was in charge of her husband's estate while he was away serving his lord in battle. She was responsible for all household affairs, including the raising of children. In preparation for their adult role, girls received training in household arts such as spinning, weaving, and management of servants. Most of the peasants who lived in the estate were serfs. Serfs were not enslaved, but they were bound to the land. They could not leave the estate without the lord's permission. Serfs farmed the land and did other work such as repairing roads and fences. In return for their service provided by the peasants, the lord provided them with the use of several acres of land to farm. The lord was supposed to protect them during times of war. For peasants, life on the manor was difficult and often harsh. Peasant men and women and children worked long hours, and few peasants lived past the age of 35. In spite of such hardship, the lives of the peasants were held together by a common thread of Christianity. The main responsibility of the church was to serve needs of the medieval society. Local priests introduced peasants and townspeople in the faith and provided comfort to them in troubled times. The church taught that all men and women were sinners, but that Christians could achieve salvation through faith in Jesus, good works, and participation in sacraments or spiritual rituals. To escape the punishment of hell, they needed to take part in the sacraments of the church. The church also gained wealth through the taxation of Christians, which required them to pay an equal 10% of their income. The church had its own set of laws and its own courts of justice. The church claimed authority over rulers, but monarchs did not always recognize this authority. As a result, frequent power struggles between the Pope in Rome and various kings and emperors occurred. Popes believed that they had authority over kings. Popes sometimes excommunicated rulers who challenged or threatened the church. The Crusades began in 1095. There were several other motives for crusades. For example, Pope Urban believed that the Crusades would increase his power in Europe and possibly reunite the Eastern and Western churches. Christians believed that their sins would be forgiven if they participated in the Crusades. Nobles hoped to gain wealth and land by participating in the Crusades. Adventurers saw the Crusades as a chance for travel and excitement. Serfs hoped to escape feudal oppression by fighting in the Crusades. For 200 years, the fighting went on. Only the first of 4 Crusades, however, came close to achieving its goal. In 1099, Christians captured the city of Jerusalem. They followed the victory with a massacre of Muslims and Jews. Crusaders divided their conquered lands into 4 small states called the Crusader states. Muslim leaders tried to regain these kingdoms, and this effort resulted in additional crusades. Later crusades also resulted in failure for the Christians. What had started as a war of Christians against Muslims ended in a battle between rival Christian fractions. In 1291, this time, the Muslims massacred Christians after their victory. Unfortunately, the Crusades left behind a legacy of religious hatred between Christians and Muslims, since each group had committed terrible acts of violence against the other. The Crusades did, however, have some positive effects. The amount of trade increased during the time of the Crusades. Crusaders returned to Europe, brought with them interesting new fabrics, spices, and perfumes. European interest in learning has stimulated as Europeans were introduced to Byzantine and Muslim culture. Europeans saw how the Byzantine and Muslims had preserved Greco-Roman learning and maintained great universities. Europeans were also exposed to mathematics, science, literature, and art, and geographical knowledge. Europeans gained a broader outlook and were introduced to many new ideas. The Crusades also increased the power of monarchs. The Crusades began in the 1000s with a variety of reasons. For 200 years, Christians and Muslims fought one another and committed terrible massacres. The Crusades had several effects on Europe. Trade began to increase, and a money economic emerged. The church temporarily gained power. Although feudal monarchs were strengthened, feudalism itself was weakened. Christian European was influenced by various aspects of Byzantine and Muslim culture as a result of the Crusades.